August 2025. Houston, Texas. The heat outside was unbearable, but inside a dimly lit diner on the city's south side, the air was thick with something far heavier than humidity: tension. A man in his late 50s sat in the corner booth, nervously glancing toward the door. He clutched a worn, cracked leather briefcase. Inside, he claimed, was the truth about Joel Osteen that the world was never supposed. He didn't look like a man chasing attention. He looked like a man running from something. When I slid into the seat across from him, his eyes darted once more to the glass door before he spoke in a low, uneven voice. "You don't know the real Joel," he whispered. "None of them do." The rise of America's smiling pastor. Before we tear into the shadows, you need to understand the light, or at least the light people think they see. Joel Osteen isn't just a preacher. He's an empire. From Lakewood Church's weekly 45,000 plus attendees, to millions watching on television and YouTube, Osteen's smiling, soft-spoken style has turned him into the poster child for feel-good Christianity. But behind the polished stage, the flawless teeth, and the endless encouragement, insiders claim something else entirely: a world of power games, hidden money, and a carefully managed brand that has less to do with God and more to do with control. The briefcase, the man in the diner, who I'll call David for his safety, says he worked for Lakewood Church for 14 years. He wasn't a pastor. He wasn't even on stage. He was part of the machine that kept the Osteen empire running from behind the scenes. When I asked him why he left, he tapped the briefcase. Inside, he said, were photocopies of private contracts between Lakewood Church and a shell company called Bayou Holdings LLC, screenshots of internal emails discussing donor allocation adjustments, which, according to him, is coded language for moving money into non-church accounts, and a USB drive with audio from a closed-door meeting between Joel, his inner circle, and 2 Houston real estate developers. I didn't know if I believed him until I heard the audio. The meeting, December 2019. The recording begins with the scrape of chairs, muffled greetings, and the unmistakable voice of Joel Osteen. "Gentlemen, we're here to make sure God's house stays secure. But you know as well as I do, security costs money." What followed was a conversation not about ministry, outreach, or faith, but about acquiring 2 blocks of prime Houston real estate through Bayou Holdings LLC. According to David, these purchases were never disclosed to the church congregation. At one point, a developer in the recording says, "Once we move it through Bayou, it's clean, no tax trail." And Joel's reply, a soft chuckle then. Praise the Lord for creative solution. The vault. If you remember the 2021 incident where a plumber found cash and checks hidden in a Lakewood Church bathroom wall, David says that was nothing compared to what's hidden in the vault. According to him, Lakewood maintains a secure basement-level storage room, accessible only by a biometric lock, where physical donation envelopes from special events are kept before processing. Processing, he said, means deciding which ones go to the official books and which ones don't. He claims he once saw over $2 million in cash stacked in plastic bins after a high-profile conference. The family rift. What truly broke Joel, according to David, wasn't money. It was betrayal inside his own family. In late 2022, Joel's sister allegedly confronted him during a private family gathering, accusing him of turning the church into a business. David claims Joel left the room in tears, an emotional breakdown so intense that service the next day was nearly canceled. And here's the kicker: that sister hasn't been seen on stage at Lakewood since. The deal with the donor. One of the most disturbing parts of the briefcase is a typed agreement, unsigned but with initials, between Lakewood and a billionaire oil magnate. The deal? A $25 million donation in exchange for exclusive rights to develop church-owned land adjacent to Lakewood's parking structure. If true, this means part of the church's sacred property could be turned into luxury condos and retail space. Why this matters? The Joel Osteen brand isn't just about preaching, it's about influence. With millions of loyal followers, any revelation that his empire is funded through hidden real estate ventures, selective accounting, and political connections could cause a faithquake. And yet, no one talks. No mainstream outlet dares to push too hard. Because Joel Osteen doesn't just have friends in church, he has friends in boardrooms, newsrooms, and City Hall. David's final words before we left the diner: I asked David why he was coming forward now. He sighed, staring down at his untouched coffee. Because the Joel I believed in, the one my family tithed to, the one I defended for years, he's gone. Maybe he never existed. As I walked out, the Texas sun burned hot on my neck, but all I could feel was a chill. Because if even half of what was in that briefcase is true, Joel Osteen's empire isn't built on faith. It's built on something far more fragile and far more dangerous. David's face was still calm in that diner corner, but his eyes carried the kind of exhaustion that only comes from holding the truth in for far too long. He took a slow sip of his coffee, like he was gathering courage from the bitter I know you probably think I'm exaggerating, he finally said, but I'm about to show you something only 3 people on this earth have ever seen. He unzipped the old leather briefcase. Inside was a manila folder marked in bold, black marker, Lakewood Internal, Confidential. The papers weren't just a couple of contracts. There were 9 laminated ID badges, a small external hard drive, and a worn spiral notebook filled with handwritten notes. I pulled out the first sheet. Across the top it read, Special Offering Allocation to Event 22B. Beneath it were multiple amounts, some listed under official account names, others just under cryptic initials like TC, Fund and Bay. According to David, these weren't random codes. They were aliases for Then he pointed to the hard drive. This isn't just documents, he said quietly. There's video. The video opened in a small, dimly lit conference room. Joel Osteen sat at the head of a polished table wearing a perfectly tailored blue suit, the same easy, flawless smile millions see every Sunday. But that smile didn't last long. Leaning forward, his tone suddenly shifted. We can't let sentiment get in the way of growth. God's kingdom expands when we have resources, and resources come from strategy. David paused the video and looked at me. When he says strategy in this context, he means money. Always money. The footage continued. A man, clearly a financial advisor, leaned in and said, we can move $4.3 million into Bayou before the quarter ends. No questions asked. Clean trail. Joel's response was just a calm nod, followed by, that's wisdom. But what David told me next was far more disturbing than a hidden transfer. In 2018, there was a so-called pastors-only retreat in Mexico. Officially, it was billed as a spiritual refreshment trip, a time for rest, prayer, and brotherhood. But David insisted it was nothing of the sort. In reality, it was a networking event. Oil tycoons, real estate developers, and media executives mingled with high-profile pastors behind closed doors. Deals weren't whispered in corners. They were signed, sealed, and blessed in private sessions. Joel's role? To provide the spiritual endorsement, the covering, that legitimized these partnerships in the eyes of certain Christian investors. That night, David said, a major donor, he only referred to him as Mr. K, stood with a glass of champagne in his hand, and said something that chilled David to the bone. Lakewood is the safest bank I've ever invested in. The laughter that followed wasn't the sound of worshipers in joy. It was the hollow laugh of men who knew exactly what they were doing. For years, Joel Osteen has been one of the most recognizable faces in modern Christianity, smiling from the pulpit, preaching messages of hope, and leading one of the largest megachurches in the world. With Lakewood Church in Houston attracting tens of thousands weekly and millions more tuning in online, Osteen has been hailed as America's pastor. But behind the wide smile, the uplifting speeches, and the carefully curated image, whispers have swirled for years about secrets the public was never meant to hear. And now, a series of alleged leaks threatens to crack the glossy facade wide open. Some say they're fabricated, others claim they're 100% real. But one thing is certain, the story they tell is not the Joel Osteen you see on Sunday morning TV. From humble beginnings to an empire of millions, Joel Osteen's story has always been painted as a fairy tale, a young man who never planned to be a preacher, suddenly stepping into his father's shoes after John Osteen's death in 1999. With no formal theological training, Joel turned Lakewood from a respected church into a stadium-sized global brand. In 2 decades, Lakewood's weekly attendance skyrocketed past 40,000. His books topped bestseller lists, his sermons became viral videos, donations poured in from every corner of the world. But critics have long asked, at what cost? The first cracks appeared back in 2014. Joel Osteen faced his first major PR storm when a satirical news site posted a fake article claiming he had renounced his faith. Though the story was false, the speed at which it spread revealed something interesting. People were quick to believe the worst. Why? Perhaps because, even then, there were murmurs about Osteen's unusual financial choices, corporate-style church management, and reluctance to address certain theological issues. The 2021 Wall of Cash scandal, one of the most infamous incidents, happened in 2021 when a plumber reportedly found over $600,000 in cash and checks hidden in a wall inside Lakewood Church. The story exploded online, and while Osteen denied wrongdoing and the police treated it as part of a past theft case, the optics were damaging. Why was so much money in the walls? Why didn't the church explain the full story? The public never got a clear answer, and for many, it became the symbol of secrecy surrounding Osteen's empire. The leaks they didn't want you to see. Over the past year, a series of alleged audio recordings and internal memos have surfaced online, claiming to reveal how Lakewood Church operates behind closed doors. Include pressure on staff to meet fundraising targets every internal debates about whether to invest more in production and branding than in charitable outreach, and an alleged VIP donor program that offers wealthy givers exclusive access to Osteen and special seating. Lakewood Church has denied these claims outright, calling them baseless fabrications designed to discredit a ministry doing. But the leaks have sparked a bigger conversation about transparency in megachurches, especially those run like corporations. The Hurricane Harvey backlash. If there's one moment that shifted public perception of Joel Osteen, it was Hurricane Harvey in 2017. When catastrophic flooding hit Houston, critics accused Lakewood Church of closing its doors to evacuees during the crisis. Osteen later insisted the church had never refused anyone and that safety issues had delayed opening. Still, the damage was done. Photos of an empty dry Lakewood building went viral, and Osteen's team spent weeks trying to repair the narrative. For his detractors, Harvey became a turning point, the moment they stopped seeing Osteen as the smiling pastor of hope and began seeing him as the CEO of a religious. The newest leaks, which Osteen's team insists are fabricated, paint an image of a church obsessed with branding, revenue, and image control. One document allegedly details a meeting agenda focused not on theological teaching or community needs but on streaming viewership growth targets, celebrity partnerships for upcoming services, monetization strategies for sermons and social media clips. Another leaked memo allegedly discusses ways to manage negative press, including a section on handling online dissenters by limiting their comments and tracking posts. If these documents are authentic, they suggest a polished operation designed to protect Osteen's image at all costs. The unanswered questions. Even without proof that these leaks are real, there are long-standing questions about Osteen's ministry. Why has Lakewood refused to disclose detailed financial statements despite bringing in tens of millions annually? How much of Osteen's wealth, estimated at over $50 million, comes directly from church donations? Why does Lakewood operate more like a media company than a traditional church? Osteen has always answered such criticism with a calm